Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. This is Port St. Lucie Utility Systems Lunch and Learn. We host these events once a quarter, so we started doing this last year. The crowd gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I am so shocked to see so many people who want to talk about the sewer system while they eat lunch. I'm honored. We should all be thrilled that there's so much interest in it. No judgment. We could talk sewer all day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. We love this stuff. I have a panel of experts behind me who have combined like decades of experience in the field, in this industry. So we are thrilled to share all of their knowledge with you today. So our topic today is what happens after the flush. It just goes away, right? Well, this is a way. This is where it goes. So we are going to take you on a journey through our sewer system, through the various stops that our wastewater makes. It travels through 1,200 miles of collection system. 1,200 miles, just to give you an idea, is Port St. Lucie to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So it is a very vast system. So here in the city of Port St. Lucie, we have 3 different kinds of sewer systems. We have septic systems. All right, we'll get to that in a moment. But we have septic systems. We have about 14,000 left in the city of Port St. Lucie, 4,000 of which are located within 50 feet of a waterway. We also have our low pressure wastewater disposal systems or grinder systems. So we have a display here. We've got some folks who are going to be talking about that today as well. And then we have gravity system. So real quick, just wastewater. When we talk about wastewater, we are referring to any of that used water that leaves your home. So any water that goes down the sink, the drain, the toilet, any water that leaves your dishwasher, your washing machine, and enters the sewer system. That's what we're referring to when we talk about wastewater. So let me introduce our panelists today. So we have Chris Nedwick. He is with Environmental One. And then in the back, we have Joe Papadakis, also with Environmental One. They are our event sponsor. So they provided these meals for you all today. That's the least they could do. If we're going to talk to you about sewer for an hour, we could at least feed you while we're doing it. So they are going to talk about these new upgraded grinder systems. We have about 40,000 grinder systems in the city, and that number grows every day because more and more people are converting from septic systems to our city sewer system. So he's going to be speaking about that. The next stop on our wastewater journey is lift stations. We need to make sure that that wastewater continues to flow efficiently through that 1,200 miles of system. So Eric Perez is here. He's a superintendent of lift station divisions. So Eric Perez will be talking about that. Kevin Palmer, our pretreatment coordinator, is here. He has a very important job. He works closely with businesses and deals in the world of fog. So in our universe, fog stands for fats, oil, and grease. So he is our residential fog expert. So he works with restaurants and other businesses to make sure that they're properly disposing of their fog, because if it enters our sewer system, it's going to wreak havoc. So he works very closely with them. And then last stop on our wastewater express train is the wastewater treatment plants. We have 2 of those in the city. So we have Mike Jennings. He's a C operator at the Glades Wastewater Treatment Plant. And he's going to discuss how wastewater is treated and where it goes after it goes away. So without further ado, I am going to start here. We are going to switch laptops, and I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Sewer systems I know about, IT stuff not so much. Thank you, everybody, as Jenny said, for making the trip and being here and spending time with us today. We're talking about wastewater and sewer, which is a subject that's near and dear to our heart. I've done this all over the world, all over the United States, and no matter where you go, you see the same challenges, not only from a community development standpoint, but from an operations standpoint. I've attended seminars and conferences in places like Sweden, where I didn't understand what was being said from a linguistic standpoint, but I could tell they were talking about all the same things that we talk about here in the States. Things like fats, oils, greases, how does a conveyance system work, what are some of the technical challenges, budgets, and things like that. But my portion of the presentation today is about pressure sewer systems. Just from a raise of hands, if you guys could just tell me who's heard of a grinder pump or a grinder pump system in this room? Okay. And how many of you have grinder pumps at your house? I'd say the majority of cases, probably 50% of the city, something like that. So this section is going to focus primarily on grinder pump systems. So we're Environment One. We make this system here. We are the sole provider of pressure sewer products and systems to the city of Port St. Lucie. We have been for a number of years now. This is all we do. We just focus on this one application. And our key is to make it as reliable as possible and to return very high return on investment for our customers and low cost of ownership. But basically, we started way back in 1969 as a spin-off of General Electric Company. We created the industry. Before Environment One was developed, the technology didn't exist in a practical, marketable form. Our pump is what's called a progressing cavity pump. It's designed specifically for the operation and the application. It means essentially that it's able to cope with a number of different hydraulic conditions without causing problems. We are recognized as the industry leader in pressure sewer systems, but I just kind of want to pause right here to not only point out that we have a national presence, but also an international presence. I do this all over the world. We do this all over the world. Our company is in 46 countries, I think now. Somewhere in the world, there's another brown bag event taking place where someone from our company right now at this very moment is talking to a group like yourself about pressure sewer systems and the benefits that they bring. But there's two primary types of systems. Jenny alluded to it earlier. We've got pressure sewer, we've got gravity, and we've got septic, various forms of septic. And all three of those types of collection systems are present here in Port St. Lucie. So just to cover kind of our mission as a company, we provide complete and accurate design recommendations for pressure sewer suppliers, engineers, and customers. So what that means is that we don't just provide a product and cross our fingers and hope that it works well. We work with the engineers, we work with municipalities like Port St. Lucie to make sure that we understand the application, to make sure that we're designing the system in a way that it can be optimized so that it's invisible to the homeowner. Having been doing this for a number of years now, it's not uncommon for me to get a phone call from an end user, and they might say, because our name and information's right on the website, but a homeowner might say, hey, I built this house back in 1990. I had no idea that it even had this pump system. That's not a good call because there's a service issue. We never want there to be a service issue, but it's good that it's been 3 decades and it has not caused an issue whatsoever. So the way that we do that is through getting involved in the system design really from the outset. And as a trusted advisor, we want to provide support for our customers from the planning and design phases through construction and the life of the system. And we always want to have a relationship for life with our customers. So where is pressure sewer used and why is it used? Well, basically, the grinder pump system itself is what makes the pressure sewer system work. But the system itself is a network of small diameter pipes out in the community. And where the terrain is undulating, so places like where I come from, upstate New York, we've got a lot of hills, we've got a lot of rocky soil content, we have high water ground table, you've got that here as well, but also flat terrain and in conjunction with other sewer systems. One of the great things about pressure sewer is that it can be installed at a fraction of the cost of gravity. The system is designed to provide a lifetime of reliable service, but on the outset, right, the installation phase, we find a capital expenditure, upfront cost savings, 50, 60, 80, 100% is not uncommon. So a lot of municipalities like Port St. Lucie, for example, a lot of builder developers opt to use the system because it's so practical. So what is it itself? This is kind of what I call a worm's eye view, if you will. You're kind of looking at it sideways. But on the right would be your home. And you see what's called a control panel on the right. It requires 240 volt single phase power. And then the system is connected to the grinder pump station via typically a 4 or 3 inch, in most cases, PVC pipe. It goes into the bottom part of the tank. That's where it fills up with wastewater. There's 2 pressure switches inside of that system that never come in contact with wastewater, which makes them very reliable. They turn on. The system macerates or grinds up what solids go into that tank, pumps it out of the station through a small diameter discharge and goes up to the street eventually and then out into the system. Now, Eric Perez is going to talk more about gravity systems. Our systems do work with gravity as well, which is one of the reasons why they're utilized so much, is that it doesn't have to be one or the other. You might have an existing gravity system And the city might say, okay, we've got this development going in, we're going to use pressure sewer here because that's what's practical, or that's what's going to, we don't want to put in another lift station, for example. One of the great things about E1 LPS is that it plays well with sewer, so to speak. But the difference primarily between pressure sewer and gravity is that pipes with gravity systems tend to be quite large, and they require lift stations and extensive excavation and things like that. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that it's not a good system to have. There's pros and cons with every type of system. Downtown Manhattan or Miami is a gravity system, and rightfully so. It's practical and well suited for that application in that instance. But in places like PSL, where you have lots of pockets in the community that are a little bit off the beaten path, it becomes more economical to use pressure sewer. So just to give you an idea of how prevalent the technology is, here's some of the larger installations that we have in the world. Every day there's about 220 houses being connected to an E1 sewer system throughout the globe. I won't read through the whole list here, but you'll see Indianapolis, 9,000 units, places in Tennessee, South Carolina, Warwick, units meaning households, so that's 100,000 households in Sweden, Finland, Denmark, places like that, as I mentioned. Here in the state of Florida, believe it or not, we already have 5,000 homes in PSL hooked up to E1 pressure sewer. We're very grateful to be the sole provider for pressure sewer products for the city, and that's quite a feat. We've come to that point in just a couple of years. Florida Keys Aqueduct Authority, 2,800 units. Again, I won't read the whole list, but Big Bend, 600 units. The list goes on, and every day that list grows significantly as well. So one of the things that we bring to the market is ease of installation. We want these systems to be installed easily. We don't want it to be complex, because if it is, mistakes are going to get made and there's going to be potentially an issue down the line. So we make everything factory tested from E1. The tank is tested, the pump is tested, everything is run through its paces, it's serialized so that when it gets to the contractor in the field, the system is known to be working correctly. We spent a lot of time and resources on oversight of installations as well. We've got Joe Papadakis. I see your hand there, sir. I'll get to you. Joe Papadakis is our local liaison to the city of Port St. Lucie. He works a lot with contractors who put these systems in. So there's a question?
Where do you manufacture?
New York State. Yep, New York State, upstate New York, from day one. Still made here in the USA. Also, serviceability. We want to make sure that whoever's servicing this entity can do it in a cost-effective, efficient manner. And we want to make sure that simplicity is part of every aspect of the design. So in many cases, it's the utility or the municipality that does the service work. In some other cases, it might be a private contractor or it might be a plumber. In all three of those cases, we want to spend time with the service entity, educating them on how to do it the right way and making sure that everything is as simple and predictable as possible from an oversight standpoint. We make a variety of different basins for commercial applications. This simplex residential unit is what's used here in the city. And we have a lot of protective functionality for our panels as well. Things like surge protection, lightning protection, brownout protection, overpressure protection, all those things are featured on our panels. And one of the really cool features that we've come out with in the last 5 years or so, 7 years now, is the advisor system. It's a remote system, an alarm system that notifies the service entity of an issue with the pump, often, if there is one, prior to the homeowner, even being aware of it. And this is what the system looks like as it's installed in the yard. We try to make it so it's low profile, so that it doesn't stick out. One of the great things about pressure sewer and grinder pump stations is that they can be situated with a lot of flexibility. So you can put them, where you want them, as opposed to, them having to be located in a certain area that might not be convenient. Why do we look at septic to sewer? Why do we look at using pressure sewer as a means of solving water quality issues, which we hear about every day in the news? We know in the state of Florida and beyond, leaking septic tanks are leading to algae blooms and water quality issues. If you open up your phone and you look at, or the television, if you turn it on, you'll see on any news outlet, water quality issues are now really front and center. We're hearing about them on a daily basis. Pressure sewer systems are one of the most cost-effective and efficient ways to deal with leaking cesspools. And I think right here, and septic tanks, in the city of Port St. Lucie, there's how many septic tanks out there that still have to be replaced?
14,000
Just under 14,000. And 4,000 that are in close proximity to a waterway. So those would be considered targets for a pressure sewer system as well. So want to just deal with some of the myths and misconceptions as we're wrapping it up. Just we have to go a little bit quicker here. There's a lot of content, so apologies for that. But just hitting the high points with gravity sewers, one of the myths and misconceptions is that once they're installed, you don't have to ever maintain them. These gentlemen will talk more about what they do to maintain that system. There's lots of regular maintenance required with them. Lots of costs required with them. You also have some vacuum sewers down here in this part of the country. One of the misconceptions is that they're sealed with no infiltration, that they're simple to operate and troubleshoot, and that multiple homes can share a valve chamber. With pressure sewers, one of the myths and misconceptions is that constant maintenance is required. This is not the case with an E1 system, and that it's expensive to operate. We know through third-party data that for about $30 a year, you can own and operate an E1 system, which is markedly less than any other type of collection method out there. So with that, I'll leave it open to any questions that you folks might have. Yes, sir. No, it has a backup generator that can be hooked up that would evacuate the station. In the case of Port St. Lucie, they take responsibility for that, and they do a great job with it. So. Budget price for something like this, for the equipment, say about $7,000.
If anyone is considering converting from septic to sewer, the cost is just over $6,000. I can find the exact number, but we offer a 10-year interest-free payment program, so you don't have to pay that amount up front. We break it down over 10 years interest-free for you, so that'll just be added onto your bill.
Great. All right, last question, sir? There's a lot of difference. These are size for the application, so you've got less water retention in this tank. It's also fully automatic, requires no preventative maintenance. Uses a pressure switch rather than a float, which comes in contact with wastewater. So it's more of an automatic maintenance-free mentality with the E1 system as opposed to the older ones that were in bigger fiberglass tanks. An inch and a quarter, typically, up to 2 inch. 4 inch in, inch and a quarter, up to 2 inch on the outside. Yeah, on the discharge side.
And when did you start installing these here in Port St. Lucie?
I think you've had grinder pumps here for about 3 decades, if not more. But just last couple of years. Yes, ma'am. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, Jenny can tell you how to find that out. So.
Whereabout in the city do you live?
Off California.
You probably have a regular grinder system on fire.
I know I have to.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Safe travels. Safe travels. So we got to get Chris out of here. He's got to catch a flight. So, all right, let's see here. All right, so real quick, again, I know that we're eating. I feel like most everybody's wrapped up, but we're going to do a quick flush test. So hopefully everyone is aware of what you should flush and what you shouldn't flush. Obviously, we know what we should flush, right? Okay, cool. I talk to kids a lot, so I've got they love when I talk about what you should flush, but I'll spare you folks here today. So we're gonna do a quick flush test, okay? So I've got my 2 toilets up here, my two bowls of water. I'm gonna show you what happens when toilet paper is flushed. I'm gonna simulate a flush with a whisk here. And this toilet paper, just with a few whisks, is doing exactly what it should be. It's breaking down, right? I put about 3 squares in there. It's not squares anymore, right? So it's breaking down. It's like a little snow globe in there. That's exactly what toilet paper should do. Now we're going to talk about flushable, in quotes, flushable wipes. So I've got my flushable wipe here. I'm just going to show you what happens when I flush this wipe. Oh, I got to flush it again. Hang on. Not much happening. It's not breaking down like the toilet paper did. All right, I'll show you a magic trick. Now these have been in my my display box for a long time, so we'll see if it works. But abracadabra, still intact, folks. The label says flushable, and it's right. Technically, this is flushable, but so is my wedding ring, right? So is a $20 bill. You can flush all kinds of things, but will it break down? And the answer is no. The answer is no, no. If you guys leave with any information today, please just remember, don't flush these, no matter what the label says. Don't flush. Look, we've got a list up here in case you want to take a picture of it. That's everything that you should not flush. So this was a couple years ago. Remember COVID? Remember when we couldn't buy toilet paper? Remember we had to order it on Amazon because everybody was out of it? We tried to get ahead of it as much as possible because we knew that with people not being able to buy toilet paper, they were going to turn to these. And that's at one of our booster pump stations. That's just a wad of this kind of stuff. And we have toilet paper on the shelves now, and we're still dealing with this kind of stuff. So please don't flush these, okay? All right, I'm going to turn it over now to Eric Perez, who's going to talk about lift stations.
Lift station.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate that. Just a quick brief about me. My name is Eric Perez. I've been with the city for 23 years, and 18 of those I've worked on lift stations. You might know a lift station if you're driving through a neighborhood or walking your dog. It's usually a fenced-in area with a driveway and an electrical panel with an alarm. Sometimes it might smell a little funny. Sometimes it doesn't. And that's just a brief description of some of the odor control that we try to have. And that is, to the far left, is what the panel looks like along with our communication. So if there's a failure within the station, it will let us know. Usually sends us a text message or something through an email. And all the sewer lines within the city, whether it be the low pressure, gravity, go to a lift station. And what happens from there? It fills up to a certain point, and then it pumps down to the next lift station, and so forth until it makes its way to the plant. And things about a lift station. Generally, in the Tradition area, our deepest lift station is 32 feet. We have roughly 315 lift stations throughout the city. If you have a septic tank, it doesn't go to that. Just the gravity sewer and the low-pressure systems go to a lift station. And same with the wipes. We have trouble with wipes. They get jammed up in our pumps. Generally, in a lift station, we have 2 pumps. This is the best way to describe a lift station, is it is very similar to this. Usually we just have 2 pumps in there, various in sizes from anywhere from 5 horsepower up to 50 horsepower. And once it fills up to a certain level, then it pumps out into the main and further on down the line to another lift station and so forth. And then it makes its way to the plant. And some of the things that we deal with are a lot of wipes, grease, stuff like that. Same stuff that can't be flushed still makes it to our lift stations eventually if it gets past the residential system. And as far as gravity goes, gravity, in my opinion, has always been the favorable system that we've had. It just has less failure to it in general, but it's just more economical to do a low pressure system in the state of Florida because of our low water table. And okay, so this is what that is me. Yeah. Oh, that is me. That's me. I'm going into the lift station to make a repair. What we do is, that one was actually about 28 feet deep. I don't recall what the repair was needed to be made. Generally, sometimes what's called a discharge leg, where the pump will pump the fluid up and out into the main, will have a failure, and we need to go inside and make a repair. Sometimes we have to go all the way down to the very bottom, or sometimes we go to the top. Yes?
So when the lift station fails, for whatever reason,
Yes.
a neighborhood can have a slow backup.
Absolutely. Yes.
And everybody, all the neighbors may say, hey, I'm not flushing, right?
Absolutely. That is correct.
Down, right?
Yes.
So it can happen in a neighborhood.
It could back up an entire neighborhood, yes.
And then it's just a matter of time before it gets repaired and everything's
Back to normal.
business as usual.
Correct. And we try to make that as prompt as possible. That can be a big disaster when that happens. So we try to be as speedy as possible. Yep, there I am dangling. That was the entire discharge leg we ended up taking out of the lift station to make the repair on.
And that photo does not do justice to just how deep. You said 28 feet deep.
Yeah, that one was 28 feet.
I took these photos and I just it's really a tough job. So my goal with these is for you all to leave with a real good appreciation for what these employees do and what they have to go through on a daily basis. I mean, 315 lift stations all over the city. You know, and you're certainly not the biggest division, so you guys they work 24 hours a day. I mean, weekends, holidays, I mean, there's always someone out there working on these things to make sure that, like, when you flush, it goes away and you don't have to think about it anymore, so.
We do all the work that nobody really gets a chance to see.
That's good.
Yeah, it is a good thing. Go ahead.
How many homes does each lift station support?
On average, every lift station holds at minimum 1,000 homes, typically.
And you have a maintenance program for them?
Yes, we do.
Do you respond when there's a problem?
We have a preventative maintenance program where we service every lift station once per year, and then as calls come in, we respond and do the maintenance on them. Yes. Go ahead.
The lift station on Oroso, and I think it's Cameo or something right near there, it never used to smell, and now it'll constantly have the odor coming from it.
So that's a Rosso and where?
For that,
Correct. There's two on Cameo, yeah. Crosstown? Okay. We'll address that for sure. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Rosso and Cameo don't cross, so I'm trying to picture where you're talking about. We have 3 on Rosso. One is by Rosso and Todd. One is right out here of our community center, and then we have one further down closer to Prima Vista.
yeah, that's the one that's smelling over there.
Okay, I know.
Never used to, but now it is.
Okay, I'll definitely make a note of that one as well. Good.
You showed all the stuff that's going in and you're pulling it out, and like, what is that supposed to do? It doesn't prevent that stuff from going in the system.
It does prevent a lot, but some of it gets by, and a lot of gravity goes to it as well. The gravity doesn't. Correct, yes.
There's maybe one issue, okay, with that. And I see these things, I walk not almost every night.
Sure.
I go down camp, and I'll do it. Beep, 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 beep. It's a lot of the houses. And I have septic. I'm one person, I only do Scott tissue.
I'm the same.
You know my brother-in-law, he's telling me as long as you do that, you're good.
Right.
That's it, nothing else. Don't use a garbage disposal, don't through, obviously, don't use feminine products, but like nothing else. So I've always been worried about that happening. And once you, 1 1/4 inch pipe, to me, just seems like,
It does seem very small, but because it's under pressure, it goes right on through, yes.
so that might be the other reason why some of this is getting through, but I bet a lot of it's gravity. I didn't realize how much is gravity in the city? Percentage-wise.
Technically, most and all of Tradition is gravity. Parts of Prima Vista, Oroso, Floresta area is gravity. Parts east of US 1 is gravity. We have a decent amount of gravity. I don't have an exact mileage.
But probably close to 30–40%.
I would say about 30%, yeah.
So everybody else, where we're stuck, and all that, where we get
You guys are the low pressure system area, yes. That's it, yeah. Go ahead.
Eric, where did we get the word grinder? Is there something in that?
So before this pump, there was a different style pump that was in here, and it has almost like a grinder. It has teeth and an impeller on the bottom of it, and it just ground everything up as it pulled it up and sent it out.
It's contained in that?
Correct.
This-
Yes.
The pump that's in that tank is a true grinder. It has a ring around it with some edges on it, and then another paddle that makes everything go through, and it macerates what goes into there. So it works like this. So it's chewing it up and sending it down the line. And that's why it's so important that it's just toilet paper that goes in there, anything that comes out of your body. Otherwise, don't put it down there. Throw it in the trash. These guys, nobody ever talks about what they do on a daily basis. Everything that goes down your sink, your toilet, your drain, they've got to deal with. The cleaner you can keep that, the better the system is. Going down the line, you only have stuff that's supposed to be in there. when we talk about, everybody talks about it, prices go up for everything, especially nowadays. But if we can control this, what gets to the plant, we don't have to work as hard at the plant to clean up all that garbage. So we have to do that to save our environment. But yeah, everything in there grinds it up. We call it macerating it, so it tears it up.
And I think that too, grinder sort of, because when I think of grinder, I'm like, oh, I can just put whatever in there and it'll just grind it up. And I think a lot of folks, so we talked about sort of the misconceptions that come along with that word. So we've done a tremendous, I mean, that's a huge part of my job is doing education and outreach. So holding events like this, so we really give people a good understanding. But so, you know, we've got a ton of development. We have a ton of new people moving here. So we've been trying to, you know, whenever someone new comes in, you know, they get their welcome packet and then they get a complete description on how these grinder systems work. But you know, they kind of check off that they got their packet, but, you know, there's still a lot of confusion. A lot of people move here from other parts of the country and have never seen anything like this before. And they're like, what is this green lid in my yard? And they park their car on it and things like that. So we're doing our best to try to get out there. And we have 90,000 customers now. So we're doing our best to get out there and really just provide opportunities like this to continue that education and things like that. So, all right. Well, thank you, Joe, for stepping in. I appreciate it. And we'll, oh, one more question?
Okay. Ooh. Yeah, the chemicals in the system. Yeah, my other two colleagues would better answer that one for you, and they'll explain why chemicals in the system are a bad thing. Okay, no problem. Any other, go ahead.
It's not really a question. It's, you probably all get a lot of complaints and things, and I want to compliment you.
Thank you.
Because the few times that our system has had problems, you've had somebody out there immediately, and it's been corrected.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Make sure that everybody understands, they are just a phone call away. They're going to take care of you. That's what we do in the field, is we're there to take care of you. When you call on the wastewater side, you want us out there, just give us a call, we will come out.
Yeah, we're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
4 hours a day.
Yes.
We've had to have our unit attended to a couple of times, and the technician said that one of the floats in there had gone bad.
Okay.
To that effect. Has that been improved upon?
They are working on those improvements, especially with this new system. It has a pressure sensor instead of the float, so they're doing away with that slowly. Yes, sir.
Are you replacing the 7, 8-year-old units?
Upon failure, I believe they are, as it comes along.
I have an alarm on the side of the house right next to it,
Okay.
the grid. It went off one time, you were there in like 15 minutes, a little bit long. The guy was there.
Oh, wow. Oh, excellent. Is there any more? Anything else? Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
All right, so that's a ton about the residential side of things. Kevin Palmer's going to take over to talk more about the business and commercial side of things. So here you go.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin. I work as the pre-treatment coordinator for the city. I've been here about 5 years. And unlike Eric and Chris, who spoke earlier, I deal more with industrial waste. So all of you are familiar with domestic waste, but I deal with commercial businesses, and I deal with industries that are now being built out in tradition in that area. So what is pretreatment? What does a pretreatment coordinator do? Certain types of waste have to be dealt with specifically before they can even enter the sewer system, or they can't even enter the sewer system at all. And there are two types of waste. So there's domestic waste, which you all know about, and there's industrial waste. Domestic waste can freely enter the sewer system without any pretreatment. So you can do whatever you want in your house, basically. But businesses cannot. So that's considered industrial waste, and that's treated differently by us. Some examples of industrial waste are the waste from restaurants. And the waste they produce would be grease. So when they wash all their pots and pans, baking sheets, etc., a lot of grease is produced. The way that we pre-treat or prevent that grease from getting in the sewer system is we have grease traps. Grease traps are gigantic septic tanks that accept the flow from the restaurant and capture it before it enters the sewer system. And the restaurant has to pump that grease trap out every so often. So what we do is we visit all the restaurants and we educate them about our program and our sewer system, and we let them know they have to service their grease traps, their grease interceptors, so that the grease does not enter the sewer system. Another example of industrial waste is manufacturing facilities. So out in Tradition, there's a lot of industries being built out. There's a copper wire plating manufacturing plant right now, and so they deal a lot with acids, bases, cyanides, chlorines. All that stuff can't enter the sewer system. They can't just dispose of that like you would anywhere else. It has to be pre-treated. So they have special processes that they do so that that waste is treated before it enters the sewer system. So why do we do this? Why don't we just allow this stuff to go down the drain? Well, we don't want things like grease and baby wipes to go down the drain because they would clog the pipes. And then the sewage can't make it to the wastewater plant, and then the sewage ends up on the street. And nobody likes that, right? So you saw Jenny with the wipes. Well, also, this is what a pipe kind of looks like with grease in it. Well, the grease and the wipes mix together and form a clog. So if all that stuff enters the sewer system, the pipe blocks, and then it overflows through a manhole or some other means, and then the sewage is on the street, and it's not nice to live like that. So that's why we do what we do. Also, we want our wastewater to make it to the wastewater plant. Mike's going to talk about this. We want the wastewater to make it to the wastewater plant so we can treat it properly, and then we make reuse quality water, which we use for irrigation, so it helps the environment. Let's see, what else? We don't want the industrial waste to enter our sewer system. Why not? Why don't we want silver or acids or bases or cyanide to enter the sewer system? Well, eventually those pipes end up at our wastewater plant. And what is a wastewater plant? Wastewater plant is basically a huge biological process. That's how your waste is treated. It's basically just bugs and bacteria in a solution getting aerated around, and that's what treats your sewage. So if we were to pour silver down the drain, or we were to pour acid down the drain, or gasoline, it would kill all those bugs. It would kill all the animals. So you would have untreated sewage. So right now, each of our plants receives about 5 million gallons a day of sewage. So we have 2 wastewater plants, so each plant gets about 10 million a day. Can you imagine what we do with 10 million gallons of untreated sewage? Like, what do you do with that? Right? So you can't have that. It's unacceptable. That can never happen. So that's why we do what we do. It would be unfathomable to have 10 million gallons of untreated sewage that we wouldn't know what to do with because somebody poured gasoline down the drain or something like that. This is some pictures of how they pre-treat waste. They neutralize acids, or they'll use chlorine to neutralize cyanide. It's various processes. And we use for residential. So for residences, houses, we can't regulate houses. We can't tell you what to do in your house. So what we do is we have a used cooking oil collection event. So twice a year, you can save all your cooking oil and then bring it to us, and we'll recycle it. It gets turned into biodiesel. So we've done this for how many years now, Jenny? 2020. And every 6 months, you can come to our public works facility on Thornhill and give us all your used cooking oil. And we'll dispose of it, or we won't dispose of it, we'll recycle it. So that's been very successful, and that's how you can help our sewer system by not pouring, grease down your drain. No, no. Yeah. Yeah, no. Yes.
On the commercial end, I know that there are some providers out there that will come and they bring the big drums that the restaurants go with oil
Yep.
before it goes down, even if there's a grease trap. Because I do commercial property management and I own commercial, and there are restaurants. And one of the things, would it be feasible, as you're saying, that that's being used for bio purposes, would it be something the city at some point could do to have collection themselves instead of these other companies that are sometimes not very reliable? Would it pay for itself to have that kind of program where you provided the drums, picked it up, it keeps a lot of stuff out of your plants, and you can make money from it? And so, it just makes sense. Like
Well-
the dump does for their natural gas that they provide to Tropicana, with it, so just a thought.
Absolutely. You're our greatest spokesperson. We would like to do that. We don't currently have that. The only place you can dispose of it without this event is at the St. Lucie County landfill off of Glades Cutoff Road and Midway Road. But other utilities have collection sites throughout the city at lift stations like where Eric showed you. Yeah. So why do we do all this? We do it so you have a safe, beautiful, and prosperous city to live in. You know, nobody wants sewage on the floor. Nobody wants unkempt place. And so we do all this for free for the commercial establishments. We do this for free. We educate them, and also the industries as well. We're very business friendly. We work together with everybody very well, and we just want a nice, beautiful city to live in, and that's why we do it. Yes, ma'am.
When is the next collection day? You said every 6 months. Let me look at that for you. It's
October,
through-
April?
It's through.
It's gonna be October.
Keyport St. Lucie, is
Yep.
it October? Yeah, because you guys just had one.
Yep.
It'll be on the website. It's a Keyport St. Lucie Beautifuls event. It's their Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day. So this is part of that. So if you just check the city's website.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. Yes. Once it's recycled, it gets turned into biodiesel fuel. There's a plant in Indiantown, and they make biodiesel. We don't sell it. There's private companies that collect the oil, and they sell it to the biodiesel plant. Yeah. Yeah. But now there's a difference. You raised a good point. There's a difference between grease that comes off of plates you wash in your sink, and then what you're talking about, used cooking oil, is what people pour their deep fryer oil into. So most of the grease we deal with is that comes off when you wash your dishes. But there is another cooking oil recycling component to that, which is what you're talking about. Yep.
There's nail salons, hair salons. I mean, you can.
Yes.
Yes, now where is that resulting biodiesel distributed?
Well, I know Willie Nelson's tour bus uses biodiesel. I don't know a lot of people who use biodiesel, but I do know Willie Nelson uses it on his tour bus. Yeah. Yes.
If you catch somebody that's not following the proper procedure, what's the penalty?
Well, we work with everybody, and we run an education-based program. So we believe education and positive reinforcement is better than anything. So we lead with that.
Then you should have them clean it up. Catch 'em.
Ideally, yes. 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 Yep. But thank you, everybody. Thank you.
And I'm just going to brag about Kevin here for a moment, because he won't, but he's been recognized by a couple different agencies for the work that he does for his pretreatment program. So it's just him. He's the only one. So how many grease interceptors? 1480? 1,480. So just this guy, just him. So he deals with all of those. So he has a very good relationship. I mean, he's a likable guy, right? So he's not going to come in and yell at you, like he said. Like, he's going to go in and just try to educate you and work with you as best you can. But to your point, the police department, our Port St. Lucie Police Department, is aware that sometimes there is illegal dumping, and there have been cases where, a restaurant will hire a company to take this grease away, to take it away, and they don't. They just dump it back into our sewer system. So we have worked with the police department so they know what that looks like. They know that if it's not one of our trucks, if it's not one of our uniformed employees, that they are not supposed to be doing that. So the police are aware, because we have had problems in the past. All right, so the end of the line, Mike Jennings. All right, so he works at the Glades wastewater treatment plant, and he is going to talk about just what do we do with all that wastewater.
I'm gonna stand here if it's all right.
Do you want to click through
Sure.
the pictures? You want to start there, whatever you want, whatever's comfortable.
Okay, thank you for having me. So yes, I work at the Glades wastewater treatment facility. It's one of 2 treatment plants in Port St. Lucie. 350 lift stations, I heard, goes to 2 large booster pump stations. And the booster pump stations send the flow to the Glades wastewater treatment plant or the Westport wastewater treatment plant. Everything that goes down the drain, from flushing the toilets to using the grinders in the kitchen sink to the laundries in the showers, and whatever gets flushed makes its way to us eventually. And it takes a while to go from lift station to lift station to lift station, because we have different holiday events when we have particularly high flows, and it's not instantaneous. So everybody talks about like halftime at the Super Bowl. Everybody gets up and uses the bathroom, and you can see the tanks rise up on their own. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. It takes about a half a day for that to actually get to us, to travel from station to station to station. But eventually it does. And we're doing about 6 million gallons a day at our facility. It's rated for 12 million gallons a day, but we're currently only doing 6, so we're about half capacity. But we have a lot of growth in Port St. Lucie, right? So we've got some room for capacity, and we're even growing so fast that they think within a year or 2, we're going to need to go to 24 million gallons a day. So we're going to need to double it still. So again, the wastewater comes to us, and we talk about all the things that go down the drain, but what comes to us basically is 99.9% water. There's very little other stuff in there. It's mostly water. So when we use the grinder in the sink, we're running the water before we use the grinder. We're grinding up and sending off what we do. We're leaving the sink on to flush it. We're brushing our teeth. We're leaving the sink on. We're heating up the shower so the water's comfortable when we get in there. And there's a lot of water that goes down that's not, the nasty stuff. So it's 99.9% water. But we have 0.1% that we need to be careful it doesn't go out into the environment untreated, because there's bad stuff in there. There can be what's called pathogenic bacteria. So if there's disease in the community, that comes to the treatment plant, and if it was to get into, so I'm from up north, I'm from the New England area, and up there, the treatment plants discharge to rivers and streams and the oceans and lakes. They don't inject it underground like they do at a lot of places in Florida, or spray it on golf courses and other grass. So we don't want there to be, COVID in there, or polio, or, whatever else disease is in there. So we're trying to control disease-causing organisms. And somewhat biodegradable material, too. Okay, so bacteria we don't want getting out. And then we treat for solids, what we call solids in the system, which is coffee grounds and eggshells and sand and grit that gets in, and food particles and things like that, the things that, we flush down the toilet. And so solids and biodegradable material is another thing that we need to remove. And we have treatment standards that says we need to remove a certain percentage of what comes in and meet a certain concentration in terms of what goes out. So we measure how strong it is coming in, and we measure how strong it is going out, and we can figure out the removal efficiency of the facility. And by law, we have to remove 85% or greater of the biodegradable material that comes in or the solids that comes in, what we call suspended solids. And we do that with what you see up here at the Glades facility. And I'm going to take you through step by step, and we'll explain, what comes in and where we take things out. We don't really put anything in to treat it with. We do a lot of gravity settling. So we let gravity do its job. Things that are heavy are going to settle. And we grow a special population of bacteria that mimics what occurs naturally if that sewage was to reach a stream or a lake or something like that. We create special conditions to basically mimic that natural process, but accomplish it at a much greater rate. So we can speed that up, and it takes about 24 hours for water to come in the front and go out the back of the plant with all the different tanks that it needs to go through. So we'll step you through and explain a little bit more as we go along. When it comes from there's two booster pump stations that feed to the Glades treatment plant. It comes into what we call the headworks. And it's lifted up in the air about 40 feet or so that we gain some elevation, and then it can gravity flow through a series of treatment stages. So we boost it up at the headworks about 40 feet in the air, and we have what we call a grit separator, and that takes out heavy particulate matter like coffee grounds and eggshells, debris that gets in there. It goes through a bar screen too, so kind of like a kitchen colander kind of thing, where we can separate out things that are readily separated out, like wipes and things like that. You can't really see it in the picture, but there's a 10-yard roll-off dumpster there, and we have to empty that twice a week because of all the flushable wipes that we pull out and everything else that goes down the toilet, if you think about it. So we can take out the gross contamination, let's say, through this colander type device. And then we take out the grit, which is the sand and things like that, and that goes in the dumpster and off to the landfill as well. After the headworks, it goes into what we call the activated sludge aeration basin. So we take that material that's been screened, and it goes into these tanks, and we feed it oxygen. We blow air into it because we want aerobic bacteria that grow in the presence of oxygen, to consume the biodegradable waste that's in there. So anything that, if you were to send it out into nature, would break down on its own through the action of bacteria, we've got a factory up there of bacteria that are doing nothing but breaking down the biodegradable waste. In the picture that you see there, there's 4 chambers going from top to bottom. And as I said, we're only running half of the facility. So the one at the very top and the one at the very bottom are active in that picture, and the 2 in the middle aren't. And that's why you see a little bit of green in one of that zigzag chamber there. That's just some duckweed that's growing on that. That's actually an empty tank. So in the middle, you can see the bubbling action that's going on, and that is providing the ideal environment to grow organisms that want to consume biodegradable waste. It's bacteria, basically. And it mimics what goes on in nature, and we just do it very efficiently. And that way there, we can reduce the concentration of the biodegradable waste that comes in and meet our treatment goals. In terms of solids, because it's an easier number to understand, I brought one with me, I think. Nope, I changed my shirt, I'm sorry. I had an example of a special filter in there that we use to be able to measure the solids with, but I actually was doing some work and got a little dirty. I put a clean shirt on when I came here. We filter the sample that comes in and measure what we call suspended solids, and we can calculate the concentration of that in milligrams per liter. So it's about 200 milligrams per liter of suspended solids that comes in. When we're in the activated sludge stage, we're growing all these organisms and bugs and things like that. It goes up. Believe it or not, we increase the solids in there, and we take it up to about 3,400 parts per million, or milligrams per liter. And that's all the bugs in there, bacteria, breaking down the consumable waste. So you think that we drop the concentration, we actually raise it. in our little bug factory. This is what grease looks like when excess grease comes to the treatment plant. You can see there's a blanket of grease on the top there because grease floats. It's lighter than water. So when we have a lot of grease coming to the plant, it shows itself in this basin by rising to the surface. This was probably taken around Thanksgiving. If you think about how many turkeys are cooked on Thanksgiving and how many people wash out their turkey roasting pans and things afterwards, we get a lot of grease. Thanksgiving is also the highest flow that we get all year. It comes in the Thanksgiving period. So that's what it looks like to us. And we have no way of removing grease at the facility. The only way that we get rid of the grease is to have the bugs eat it. So all that's going to do is continue to recirculate through the plant until, and what we can do is we can increase the oxygen content of the water, and that way there we grow more bugs, and they'll eat the extra food that's coming in. So that's something that we monitor all the time in this basin, is the concentration of dissolved oxygen. And we have a target level that we want to maintain. And when we get a lot of grease in, we'll raise that up a little bit because more food means more bugs, and more bugs needs more oxygen. So that's part of what an operator does on a daily basis. There is probably a technology. There are all kinds of technologies to remove it prior to it getting there. We just don't have it at Glades. So out of the back of the aeration basin, it goes to a clarifier. So using the solids analogy that we had, we were talking about 200 milligrams per liter. Out of the aeration basin, what we call a mixed liquor is about 3,500 milligrams per liter. And then we put it into a clarifier, which is just it's a vessel that allows things that are heavier than water to settle to the bottom and things that are lighter than water to rise to the top. And what's on the bottom, we can circulate off and pull off as a thickened sludge. And then we take that clear water. I'm going to show you a picture of the clear water that goes over and on to further treatment. But coming out of the clarifier, where going into the clarifier, it was 3,400 milligrams per liter. Coming out of the clarifier, we take it down to about 5 milligrams per liter. So it's very efficient. What we want to do is grow a population of bugs that will flocculate, which is come together and link up, and then they get bigger and heavier, and they settle faster. So we want them to settle out. And then we put some of that material back into those aeration basins to keep the process going, because we have a target level for how long we want those solids and those organisms to be in the system. We run the plant right now, so it takes about 11 days before those bugs would be replaced with new bugs. So going from 200 milligrams per liter coming in to 5 milligrams per liter leaving the clarifier is I did the math, where did it go? 97.5% removal. So we can remove 97.5% of the solids just by blowing air into the water and allowing it to separate out. Okay, so we need to meet 85%, and we're well beyond that, so we do a really good job. But we're not done. This is what those jagged teeth are called weirs, and the water flows out over the weirs and the edge, and you can see in that trough right there, that's what it looks like at about 5 milligrams per liter. So with nothing other than blowing air in it and gravity separation, we've removed a great majority of the pollutants. Not so much the pathogenic organisms, but the pollutants. The biodegradable and solids. There's another picture, looks pretty good. When it's really hot, you want to get in it, but then you remember what it is, and you don't. We take some sludge out every day, because if we didn't, the plant would fill up with it, and it goes to the dewatering facility. That's a 1 million gallon tank, and we have a couple of centrifuges in the building behind it, and we spin out the water through the centrifuge so that the material that goes out to be composted is about 20% solids and 80% water. So that's what dewatering is taking the solids out and then thickening them up. And from our facility, it's 3 to 4 tractor trailer loads per day going off to a composting facility.
And where is that? At the dome?
No, there's, I think it's in Clinton County. I don't know. We contract with a company that takes it away, and it either goes to a landfill or a composting facility. It's currently going to a composting facility. I'm just not sure where. Again, it's a third party that handles that for the city. Yes? Minerals? We don't really remove organics. I'm sorry, inorganics like calcium, magnesium, things like that. That will tend to either stay in the system and go out with the effluent, or possibly get linked up with some other things based on the chemistry as the pH changes. There's a whole lot of science that goes into that on the chemistry side. We don't really do any chemical manipulation. They do that at the drinking water facility. We're basically physical and biological treatment. Yes?
What type of educational background does it take to do the kind of work you do?
So you have to be a certified operator in every state. Every state has a certified operator requirement. In Florida, you have to have a high school diploma, and you have to pass a certification exam. So I'm a grade C operator, and there are A, B, C, and D. A is the highest. And then there's a certification exam that you need to take, and then you have to gain experience to actually qualify for the license. So for my C license, I had to pass the exam. Then I started as a trainee, and I worked for a year for a trainee because you need a year's experience as a C operator to become a certified C operator. For a B operator, you need 2 more years on top of that. And then for an A operator, you need 5 years total experience. And then you have to pass a B exam and an A exam, and they get progressively harder. So. No, I'm just a C operator. I've only been doing this for 18 months, believe it or not, for the city. I've had some other jobs before then. So, yeah. Do we have chemists? We have a lab and we do process control tests, but Kevin works at a lab that the city has that has the real chemists that do the reporting to the state that shows that we're meeting our discharge limits. So, yes, they're NELAC certified is what it's called. So they're able to show that they can make reproducible tests that meet the definitions. And, you know, when they say the reading is 25, it's really 25. We do kind of meatball chemistry where we have a greater tolerance for error. And all we're trying to do is figure out to the nearest 10,000 gallons how much sludge we're going to get rid of on a particular day. So in Florida, a lot of the wastewater effluent, I'm sorry, go ahead. It depends. Probably not. Westport, the other treatment plant, does make what they call reuse water and will provide their treated effluent to developments to irrigate their grass with. Glades, we're permitted to do that, but we don't have any customers currently hooked up. So more than likely, I would say it's probably reuse water. It's not gray water. It's been treated. I'm going to show you what it takes to be considered reuse water. It's a high purity water. It's been through our facility, and then the steps that I'm showing here are above and beyond so that it's safe to spray and where people might have a little bit of exposure to it. So coming out of those clarifiers at 5 milligrams per liter solids, it goes into a sand filter where we want to reduce those numbers even more, because we're going to, in the future, be providing it to customers to irrigate with. So the sand filter takes it from 5 milligrams per liter solids down to usually about 1 milligram per liter solids. And that is a 99.5% removal of the solids that come in to the solids that go out. And it's basically like an aquarium filter. We just put the water through, almost think of it like coffee grounds. You know, we percolate through from the top to the bottom, and what comes out on the bottom instead of coffee is just a much cleaner product. That's a picture of it right there. Like I said, down to about 1 milligram per liter on average. We don't, no, because the drinking water facility probably does, but for us, we just need to get that number down. We use another meter to measure it. That's a surrogate for solids. It's called turbidity, and that's how much light diffuses through it when you shine a flashlight through it or a special wavelength light. And we have to be below 2.5 standard units on that for it to be considered reclaimed water and able to be used. Not yet, no. Although there's a big story, they're doing that in Phoenix, out west where they don't have a lot of water. They're doing direct potable reuse. Because we're still concerned about pathogens, we do disinfect it. So we treat it with chlorine gas, and that kills off any organisms that might still be in there. And we test daily for fecal coliform. The lab comes in and collects a sample, tests for fecal. In order for it to, and this is the contact chamber, it has a 30-minute detention time, so when we apply the chlorine to it, it takes it 30 minutes to wind around through those channels, so there's contact time to get the pathogen kill that we're looking for.
Is there evaporation?
I'm sorry? What was?
Any evaporation problems with this?
I'm sure there's evaporation going on, but that's good. That's less that we have to get rid of. Reuse. So it goes down to this station here, and when eventually our clients are hooked up and we're going to sell our effluent to them, it'll be from this basin. That's the pipe that goes all the way to the right into the ground. And then the first one that goes down behind that big Tylenol-looking tank is going over to a well in the back. We actually pump it 3,000 feet underground to get rid of it right now. So instead of sending it out into a surface water body, we have underground injection. But when Copper Creek and a couple of other developments come online, they will be receiving our reuse water for watering their grasses and golf courses. And that's it for me. Thank you for your time.
And then, sir, you asked about your particular neighborhood, so I have the list of our reclaimed water customers, so I can point you to that. So, all right, everyone. So we're a little bit past time, but there were so many good questions. I so appreciate your interest. I see so many familiar faces from events previous. So, be on the lookout. We do this once a quarter. We focus on a different topic every time, but it'll be the same setup as before. So I just thank you all so much. Please don't forget to fill out your feedback surveys. Let us know how we can keep improving this event series. So I thank you all so much for your time and attention, and we'll see you at the next one. Yes, ma'am. Yes? Only if it's good.
All of you, the work that you do, and just imagine what it would be like for even one day without these rounds.
Yes, yes. Round of applause. Yes, thank you. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.